Hello and welcome to Symbols and Cynicism, a podcast where we talk about all of the things I love, some of the things that I hate, and this wacky adventure that we call life. My name is Bob, I'm your host, and I'm glad you're here today as we talk with OMEA Executive Director Jay Wardeska, reverse sear some steaks, and talk about the Star Wars Holiday Special. Let's get started. Welcome back. Welcome to the show. We are glad you're here. Episode 21. The podcast can now taste bourbon with Matt. And yes, thank you so much for all of you that wrote in concerning an error from last week. I mentioned that it was episode 20 and that we could almost vote and almost drink bourbon. You took the opportunity to remind me that the voting age in the United States of America is 18 and not 21. Yes, I did know that. It was a mistake, and I apologize. I voted in my first election when I was 18, barely 18, but I was 18. It was 1992. The main candidates were Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, and Ross Perot. We don't talk a lot about politics on this podcast, but I will say I was a senior in high school. I voted for Ross Perot, something about him that I just really liked. Don't want to get into it. Of course, Bill Clinton won that election and went on to serve 2 terms as president. A little bit of fan mail this week. First of all, thanks so many of you for sending pictures of your deviled eggs. That was hilarious. Made my Thanksgiving Thursday and even Friday just funny. My phone lights up and boom, there's a picture of deviled eggs. So high marks for all of you that were eating deviled eggs over the weekend. For those of you interested, my number was 15. Disappointing numbers, in my opinion, but we'll rebound at Christmas. I promise we will come back stronger. I do apologize today for my voice. I've been under the weather the last few days with a head cold, and I sort of waited as long as I could to record, but here we are. The good news is, on today's podcast, a conversation with OMEA Executive Director Jay Wardeska, which was recorded before my head cold, so that won't be a problem for any of that discussion. We also reverse sear some steaks, and how about the Star Wars Holiday Special? There's a lot to do, so let's get to it. Bring on Jay Wardeska. All right, welcome. We are here in North Canton at the International House of Pancakes next to a Sam's Club, because only the best venues for Symbols and Cynicism, the podcast. But we're here with Jay Wardeska. Jay is the OMEA Executive Director. You're nearly a doctor, not quite finished. He is the director of a community brass band. He is a mentor to many, including me and my friend. Jay, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks, Bob. I'm excited to be here, especially at IHOP, of all places.
Of all places. I happen to be in the Canton area. You live nearby and have a rehearsal here shortly, so this is the place to meet. What better place? We had a great breakfast. What did I miss? What did I miss about Jay Wardeska other than OMEA Executive Director?
Well, I'm not really that interesting in general, so you didn't miss a lot. But I do know about your penchant for Star Wars, so I thought I should be honest up front and tell you that I do have what is sometimes looked down upon, and that is a very devout love of Star Trek. So I can actually, my wife and I play a little game. I can identify the episode usually before the first line of dialogue.
Well, I love Star Trek. I think Star Trek is better sci-fi than Star Wars. Star Wars is not great sci-fi. It's not based on real life, and it's not in the future either. So I'm not going to look down upon you for Star Trek. I am not that level of Star Trek.
Okay, good. We're safe space then.
But I do. Wrath of Khan, that's the best movie.
True, I agree.
So we're here to talk mostly about OMEA, a little bit about your journey, the future, professional development conference, etc. But as executive director, give us sort of there's probably no typical day, but give us a day in the life of the OMEA executive director.
I'd say that's very true. There's no such thing as a typical day. I think most people don't necessarily even know that we have a staff, let alone a full-time staff. But basically, we run a pretty lean machine in OMEA. We have, as a lot of people know, we're the third largest music education association in the country and have almost 4,000 members. So our staff is really only 6 of us. We have our Director of Adjudications, Bill Thomas, and our Director of Awards and Materials, Dane Newlove, who handle pretty much everything related to our adjudicated events. Dane has picked up handling everything that has anything to do with awards or any of the other things that we provide for our members.
Yes, I hear about that regularly.
I'm sure you do, yes. He's the UPS Most Valuable Player. And then we have, of course, our Director of Technology, who is our youngster on the staff, keeps us all honest, Nick Turan. He was hired by me, my only hire so far. And then we have, of course, Mark Hensler, who most people know is the Director of Professional Development and the mastermind behind our conference. And then Bill Whitman, who's our Director of Business and Trade Shows. So those are very sort of specific jobs that deal with a specific part of the organization, whereas my job is kind of everything else, as well as helping them with their portions of the jobs. I do all the business aspects of things, negotiating contracts. Obviously, I'm responsible for the budget, paying the bills, finding the money, and dealing with the membership. When I was hired, I had a platform as part of my hiring that had 3 basic stages. The first stage was just to take what Roger had done, getting us through COVID and continue that process of getting the organization to be basically back to where we had been before the pandemic happened. And then the second stage of my plan was to try to take the events and services that we were already doing and have done traditionally and try to start to retool them for the fact that things are very different in the 2020s than they've been previously. So to try to provide opportunities for more of our members and more of their students. And then the third phase of my plan was really to start expanding what we do. I read, as nerdy as this sounds, I have on my desk a copy of the OMEA mission statement, and I read it every Monday morning before I start my week. And I focus on the fact that it says that OMEA is committed to providing a high-quality music education to every student in Ohio and taught by licensed teachers. And I read that every Monday, and I feel extreme guilt over the fact that we don't come close to achieving that goal yet. And so that really drives me throughout the week. And I've spent a lot of time in dealing with and in developing partnerships. I think OMEA has been because we are such a strong organization, we've been able to be very independent. And so I've really tried to make us more engaged in the national conversation. And through that, we've made a lot of new partnerships that have both benefited us financially, but are starting to already provide that expansion, things that I think will be accessible to more students and provide stronger professional development. The trustees that hired me were very adamant that they wanted a leader, someone that would have vision and drive new ideas, and that's really been my commitment. So it's been a lot. We've had some changes, and I've taken on a lot more positions than I should have, and so that has hampered me some. But we're to the point where we're expanding so fast that it's just exciting.
And we're in the 3rd year of your executive directorship. Is that right?
3.5 years.
3.5. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I remember your first year, was the year I was all-state coordinator. I think we kind of broke in
We did.
those roles
Yes.
together. So it seems like a flash in the pan ago, but man, it was maybe longer.
Yeah, 2022 was the first year, or was when I was hired. And it does seem like both a blink of an eye and a long time.
Right. That's the way life works as you get older. So
Yeah.
You mentioned your 3 phases. Are we through phase 1? Are we back to where we were before COVID?
Yes, we are very, very healthy. Our membership is growing. We finished in the black this year. We've retooled a lot of things. I know most people focus on AE. I think people have seen that there have been changes in AE that help make it more accessible and provide more options. We've been focusing the same way on our conference, and we're now into phase 3, where we're starting trying to take what we have, look at the areas where we're not servicing people, and try to find ways to expand that. A real recent example is we have a partnership now with an organization called Music Will. They're the leading organization in the United States on the area of modern band. And so they actually are partnering with us. They provided a free all-day modern band professional development workshop a couple weeks ago open to anyone. We had over 30 people attend it. They even provided equipment for the people that came. And modern band is something that I think a lot of traditional teachers are a little afraid of, especially those of us who are more experienced, shall we say, in our profession, because it sounds like something that's that's hyped up and maybe would take kids away from our program.
Right.
But really what it is an incredible avenue to get kids into your program. You know, we spent the day. I participated as a member of the PD because I wanted to learn it firsthand and be able to talk about it. And we had an immediate success. And I think what the research is showing is that a whole part of our student population that we've not been teaching music to is who this is attracting. And so we're getting a lot more kids into music programs, and then a lot of them end up figuring out after they get started, they want more music. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people are finding their band choirs and orchestras are actually growing once they start these programs. They're much more inexpensive to start because you just need basically a drum set, a guitar, it's typical sort of rock band type of instruments.
Yeah.
And kids need zero experience. And then you end up teaching them what it is you wanted to teach them through a different route. So I'm hoping this will really, and a lot of my job that I didn't mention earlier is dealing with the political climate we're in and finding ways to advocate for us at the state and national level. And nothing will make us more powerful than having more kids in our music programs.
So you don't just sit at a desk and twiddle your thumbs all day?
It turns out that I do not do that.
Well,
yes.
I think there's no confusion about that, having been your friend and worked with you as you were getting in. And I knew Roger. Roger was always working.
Yes.
And a lot of your job also, you didn't mention this, is you're across the state. You go to local meetings and connecting all of Ohio. You can't just sit in your office and executive direct from on high, so to speak. You're around. I think you mentioned AE. I think probably the all of the press, so to speak, goes to marching band adjudications and or solo and ensemble large group adjudications. But that impacts such a small percentage of the music students in the state. You mentioned modern band. What are some of the other things that OMEA does to reach other groups of students?
Well, I actually think that the perception of OMEA that we do the conference and adjudicated events has unfortunately been somewhat true, that's what we did. I think that in the last several years, probably the most important unseen part of what we do is the advocacy piece, especially in the dangerous times that we live. I think that, people who don't belong to OMEA, or even people who do belong, don't understand that we're in the trenches. We don't do a good job of talking about it because we're too busy doing it. But just recently, for instance, myself and 2 of the trustees, we spent the entire day in Columbus meeting with some of the top leaders of the General Assembly, people who serve on the Education Committee, and talking specifically about the fact that, number one, they shouldn't be allowing teachers who aren't licensed to teach music to be teaching music. And they were shocked to find out this was even allowed. So I think we're going to see some action in that area right away. We talked about the fears we all have about property tax. And we're building those relationships that are going to continue to make sure that when cuts come, music aren't part of that discussion. We certainly do a lot of other types of events for students, such as the honors ensembles and those sorts of things. And we're right now working to expand those programs so that they're available to many more students. As I said, I read that mission statement I read it every day. One of the things that I worry about is that there are demographics in our state that don't have the resources to allow them to access a lot of our programming. So that means we have two jobs. One is to help those programs have the materials and the resources, but then to also make sure that we're taking down any barrier that might be preventing those students. I just spent the day a couple weeks ago with all of the music teachers in the Columbus City Schools. And it was an incredible day learning the challenges they have, learning about all the great work that they're doing, and finding ways that OMEA can provide experiences for their students to make sure that all of their students are getting the same experiences that our students in the suburbs are getting.
Yeah, I think that's one of the beauties I've seen in the last couple of years as you've taken this executive leadership is we are expanding beyond the icing on the cake,
right,
so to speak, which living with and married to a general music teacher, she appreciates. She's seen some changes toward, hey, there's more general music opportunities being provided by OMEA, because I think that's something in the past, distant past, that has been, I wouldn't want to say underappreciated, but underdeveloped, maybe.
Yes.
So
I think that's true. I also think it's probably we do a really bad job at being musicians, of tooting our own horn.
Right.
And I think there are things we do that people don't know that we do, and we really work on that. I mean, 25% of the conference's programming this year is going to be strictly geared towards professional development for general music. We don't talk about those things enough. And we do have more and more of those opportunities that we're creating throughout the year, because it is a need that we have. And partnerships have been a big part of how that's going to happen and evolve. So.
And you mentioned Professional Development Conference that's coming up end of January.
Yep.
In Columbus.
Yes.
And I think this is the marquee event of the OMEA calendar. It's the most number of music teachers all in one spot at one time. It has a trade show. I remember being a young teacher and excited to go to learn. I went to every advanced literature bassoon clinic, even though my band did not have a bassoon player. It just there was so much stuff. It felt like drinking through a fire hose, which was fantastic for me. As I got a little older, I got excited for convention because I could connect with old colleagues and go see great concerts. It kind of evolved into that. Now, I'm excited for convention. I have a booth at the trade show for the first time ever, and looking forward to that. So tell us, what makes OMEA Professional Development Conference so special to you?
Well, I would say, first of all, as a 35-year member of OMEA, well, actually longer than that, 39-year member, if I think about college. I guess I shouldn't have said that. That dates me some.
We can cut that out.
We'll pretend like I'm 20 years younger. I took it for granted as an attendee that this is just what every music teacher has access to. And in reality, we're really, really fortunate. We're unique in the scope of our conference. We're the third largest music education conference in the country. We will have, over the course of the 3 days that we're in Columbus, close to 10,000 people visit our conference, between parents and performers and all of the exhibitors. It's incredible, the scope of it, and Mark deserves a lot of credit. He's very carefully nurtured the professional development aspect of it, so that the curriculum that we provide is just so wide-ranging. And because of our reputation and because of that scope, it makes it much easier for us to get the big name clinicians to come because they know it's beneficial to them, as well as our All-States. We have certainly marquee level All-State programs. For me, I think you can't you already touched on it. You can't dismiss the community that it is. I think for all of the teachers, it's 3 days to immerse yourself with people who get what you do, people that you reunite with that have been your friends for decades, new people that you meet. One of the interesting experiences I had was when I was interviewing for this position. Part of my interview was at the conference that we now call Snowmageddon, which was the blizzard of 22. Of course, it was a very challenging experience for OMEA. It was the only conference to ever go into debt. But the upside of it was the most, because so many sessions couldn't take place and performances couldn't take place, the amount of communal events that just happened were incredible.
Yeah.
And you really got a sense of why we are such a strong organization, because the way we interrelate. This is kind of an aside, but one of the things I learned as a young teacher, I was fortunate that my first job was in a small school where there was one music room, and my office was right across from the choir director. She was an experienced teacher, and one of the things she taught me right from the beginning was to never call myself a band director. She said, you're a music teacher.
Right.
You teach kids how to play band instruments, but you're a music teacher.
Yeah.
And that really shaped who I became. And I never stopped doing that my whole life. People would say, "What do you do for a living?" And I would say, "I'm a music teacher."
Yeah.
And then they would say, "Well, what do you teach?" And then I'd say, "Well, I teach band." But I think that's always a challenge to us, because we become so siloed, and sometimes we almost seem to be adversarial within music itself. And I think that's another thing the conference sort of helps dilute.
Yeah.
Because for those 3 days, it's an epicenter of music and celebration.
When you talk about the scope and the attendance of conference, and I think
Conference.
Yeah, conference. I remember a number of years ago, my wife's, one of her administrators, they sort of made this blanket statement like, we're not sending anybody to PD because we don't want to make the expense. And in talking with some of her colleagues, she found out that like reading conventions and math conventions are sometimes 200 or 300 people in like a ballroom in a Hilton somewhere. And that's what they were trying to avoid. As soon as she discussed with her administration, we're like, this is like 4,000 music teachers, and here's the program of things that I'm going to do. It was like, oh, this is the music convention for the state, not a music convention for the state. And that kind of opened the administration eyes. At least in our corner of the state, we're going through this right now where there are cuts. And one of the things that a lot of administrators are cutting is sending people to professional development conferences. And I think that's a shame, because it is so great, not only for the education, but the networking and the community, like you said. Any headline guests coming up this year?
Yeah, well, and to follow up with what you just said, with the struggle that some teachers have getting leave for professional development. I had the opportunity in my teaching career the last several years to attend some administrative professional development, and that explained to me why they have a different view of what professional development looks like. Because they're used to, you go to breakfast, then you have 2 sessions, you have lunch, you have 2 sessions, you're done.
Right.
So one of the things that I found successful, I just worked with a young teacher in Northwest Ohio recently, whose administrator didn't want to let them go. And I suggested the usual, why don't you show them the conference program, et cetera.
Yep.
But I said, why don't you invite them? And so I think I recommend this to all teachers. If you get a lot of resistance, I'm happy to provide a VIP pass for your administrator to attend. And if you can take them around to some of the sessions you're going to, I think pretty easily an administrator. I mean, when my groups performed at the conference, and I would bring my administrators, they'd be blown away at the scope of it. They had no idea.
Yeah.
And then they were sold on it from that point on.
Yeah.
So I think I'm glad you brought that point up, and I recommend that if anybody's having some issues. we'll be happy to set their administrator up with being able to attend. We're having members of the General Assembly attend this year.
So they should just email you for a VIP pass?
Yep. Find my contact information on the website, and I'm happy to help. As far as headliners, our big each year we try to do a featured ensemble, and we try to make sure we get all of the areas. So last year we had the Cleveland Orchestra Chorus as our feature group. This year it's going to be the Dallas Brass. So they're of course outstanding not only in their performance with several international appearances and albums and all, but they've really focused on education and particularly bringing the message of chamber music and what it can bring to students.
Yeah.
So they're going to be performing a feature concert on Thursday night, and then they're going to actually do several sessions for us on Friday about chamber music, about some things that are specific pedagogically to brass instruments, that kind of thing. But we're really excited to have them on board, and we're thankful to Yamaha, who's helping us with that sponsorship. We also have, there's big names in every area. We have 2 new general music chairs this year. They've brought in some of the biggest names out there right now and publishers. One of the big choral headliners is Rosifany Powell. I know a lot of my choral colleagues will know her. Peter Boonshaft is coming back. I hope the younger generation may not know him as much as those of us who are older do, but if there's anyone who can inspire you about it being a teacher, it's Peter Boonshaft.
My one regret in my teaching career is that we traveled to New York and we're going to work with Peter Boonshaft, and he came and I forgot my book to have him sign. I was left it on my desk. It's how could I forget this book? Wonderful human being. Just not only knowledgeable musically, conducting, etc., but just Dr. Tim level inspiration and communication and
exactly.
buy-in for music education.
Yeah, we're excited. It's a great lineup. As usual, I don't think that anyone will want for great content for their area.
So registration and hotel, that's open.
It's open
right now.
Hotels are going pretty quickly, so I encourage people to get their reservations in so they don't miss out on it, because we do have reduced rates, and as everyone knows, hotel prices are going up, especially in Columbus. January 16th is the magic date where prices go up. So you can still get reservations and you still get registration, but it's much cheaper to do it in advance.
And you can, at convention, you can walk up and register.
Absolutely, yeah. We have lots of opportunities and lots of different packages. If you visit our website under the conference tab, there's a great page that kind of lays out for you what all the options are. Certainly encourage collegiate people who are pre-service teachers or studying music education now to attend. It's a great way to network. I'm sure you remember going as a college student.
I do.
Not only do you learn so much, but you start meeting people and getting those connections that may ultimately lead you to a job.
The thing I remember most about attending as even a young teacher was following around my older band director friends, because that was my connection, follow around person X, and walking through the exhibits at the trade show and just stopping for 20 minutes at a time while they talked to their friend, and I stood there like a puppy dog not knowing anyone. But again, later, now I know that person, and that's that connection. So I loved going as a student. I love going as an adult. I'm excited to be on the exhibitor side of it and have that whole new different experience.
And we're doing everything we can. My commitment right now is to make sure we don't, as everyone knows, the economy is very challenging and the prices of everything are going up for us. And one of our challenges is that we have such a large conference, we have limited options. So we're really trying hard to keep the prices down, which we haven't increased any of our registration costs. And we've got several sponsorships that you'll see at the conference. We have a new Pinnacle partner in Winger. They're going to be a partner of ours for the next 5 years. That's provided some incredible opportunities, all without passing any expenses on to the attendees.
And part of the challenge right now is with the size of our event, there's really only 2 places in Ohio we can have it. Cincinnati right now doesn't have the hotel available, so it's Columbus or Cleveland. Those are the 2 options. There's not a lot of playing one against the other as far as pricing is concerned. Those are the only 2 games in town. I remember it being in Dayton
Yeah. Me
and
too.
Toledo
Yeah.
used to be involved as well. And I remember being in Dayton. I think I was a college student, and we were shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow. You couldn't walk around.
Yeah.
That was just way too big. And that might have been the last time it was at one of those venues. This year's in Columbus.
Yes. And
Actually, next two are?
next year too, 2027.
Okay.
One of the great things about Cleveland is that we're a big player because everyone knows it's cold as heck in Cleveland in February, but we sold out every single downtown hotel room in Cleveland last year.
And I think, I remember back again to, 10 years ago, the Cleveland Convention Center left a lot to be desired. And none of the hotels were connected. And it was the wind off of things have changed. That convention center has undergone lots of renovations. Lots of the hotels are now, it is not the reputation does not precede it.
Yeah,
What am I trying to say?
Once they acquired the other half of the center that used to be a medical convention center, now the city controls all of that property, and they have plans to continue to connect more hotels and more expansion. So I think we'll continue to see it improve as we go back.
And I think, not to be political, but we have a couple things to thank probably for that. LeBron is probably, and then the Republican National Convention was there. That helped some of that connection and revitalization.
Yeah, and
lots of money flowing in.
They really are, especially when it's warm. They've become a destination. Last year there's an international association of conventioneers, people who do this for a living.
A convention of conventions.
And they actually had their conference there. And immediately they saw a spike in the number of conferences. So I think we see the benefits of that because they upgrade their facilities and everything.
Not to touch on a sore subject, but now if the Browns could just get it together, Cleveland would be perfect.
Yeah, let's not touch on that subject.
Next topic. You're an executive director. It's a really busy convention for you. What excites you about walking into that week? What are you excited about?
I think I'm just excited about having everybody together, under the same roof, so to speak. And there's something about that. I used to feel it as a teacher that it was like some sort of vitamin that you took in the middle of the winter. Like I always thought it was in the perfect time of the year because I was always starting to feel sort of worn down and maybe a little defeated. And then after that, I had what I needed to get through the year. And I always feel the same way. It's easy in my job now to get to sometimes forget to lose sight of the people because sometimes you're dealing with money and budgets and figuring out how to pay for things or the problems that happen just like you do as a teacher. And so having that giant celebration of everything that we stand for and what we are about, it does the same thing for me. It gives me that energy to push on and to feel energized. Having all those performers, having all the students come in and see the level of excellence that our teachers achieve, it's just amazing. And like I mentioned earlier, this year we're going to have some of our lawmakers attend.
Oh,
and
great.
so we're pretty excited to be able to, for them to, when they see the scope and the energy of our teachers, that by itself is going to do an enormous amount of advocacy. Last year we had the opportunity for people, and I encourage them to take advantage of this again this year, but in the Allstate program, there was a QR code that would take you to a service where you could very easily just type in your name and zip code, and it would identify your lawmakers.
Yes.
And you could send an email. It was pre-crafted, or you could change it a little. We sent like 1,800 emails in 2 days, and it got a lot of attention.
That's great.
Because that's an enormous number for them to receive. So I'm hoping these are things, again, people don't know or have that big of an impact that the conference can do without any effort.
Yeah.
So
you talk about the vitamin in the middle of the year. I used to always hate when professional development conference was the week before Soul and Ensemble, because it's like, I don't want to spend 2 days away, and I would argue with myself on whether to go, I would always go, and then I would be so glad because typically we'd miss a day of school in one of those 2 days anyway. It's like you get that text, school's canceled. Well, I guess I didn't miss a day with kids, but and then I would always go back on Monday, and the kids would know, okay, Sloan's going to be fired up today because he just came back from a conference.
Exactly.
That sort of thing. So, I think it's great when people our age, you and I, can still be excited about this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, That's cool. I get fired up seeing the young teachers like I used to go from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. They don't have time to stop and talk because they're on their way to another thing. And that's great. Always encourage all my young teacher friends to do that. Anything else?
I'm really proud of where we are. You know, we have to do better of both meeting our mission statement, as I mentioned, but also educating people on what we accomplish. Being part of the organization is being part of something so much bigger than yourself. You know, I feel so privileged to do what I do and to continue to give back to an organization that has done so much for me and made me who I am.
Well, enough music and convention. You want to talk Star Wars?
Sure.
We do a lot of Star Wars on this podcast.
I've heard.
I know you're also a Star Trek fan, and we welcome those people. That's not a problem.
Okay.
But this is not a Star Trek podcast. So my first question to every guest is always the same on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being you are not sure who Luke's father is.
Oh.
And 10 being you do know that Luke has an evil clone. Where do you fall on the spectrum?
Well, let's see. I was born at a time that let me be there at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So I think I was in 5th grade when the first movie came out. And of course, it was like, people don't believe this, but it was sort of a movie no one first knew about.
Right.
And then it truly became a cult classic, which was, without social media, pretty amazing.
Right.
So I was the kid that I had the 33 RPM LP
Nice.
that you had to turn it over. I can still remember that you turned it over when the Millennium Falcon was entering the Dock 347. And then it would play that on the other side. I had the 8 tracks for the soundtrack.
All right.
You know, so I could probably recite a lot of the original movie.
Okay.
And I've kept up with it. I would say I'm probably a 7 just because of time.
All right.
You know.
Yeah. There's a lot of media to consume, especially if you're trying to read the books and all that. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. So what's your favorite movie? Let's just start there.
I would say it's probably Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
I think because the characters had evolved enough by that point, and George Lucas had, there was enough new technology to really make it,
right.
Kind of more of his vision.
Favorite character?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. I would say, I shouldn't say this because it plays into stereotyping myself, but Darth Vader is kind of hard not to like as a character, especially his evolution. I will say that in movies 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, depending on how you choose to define them, not so much. But certainly an interesting character.
Yes.
But Yoda's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
He's the most quotable. He's wise.
Certainly.
He's the underestimated character. Yeah, I'd say Yoda.
All right. So we usually talk about favorite villain. I guess that'd be Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Favorite villain?
Yeah.
What about your favorite hero? Favorite Jedi? Favorite hero?
Ooh, let's see. My favorite hero. I guess it's probably Han Solo, because he's like, he got a little bit of bad in him, but but really at his heart he's good. Just doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah, he's got a little scoundrel in there.
Yeah.
I think he wants to be known as the scoundrel.
Yeah.
But when you watch the full scope, he leaves. He always comes back.
Yeah, and when he
says
dies,
it's about the money, but he never makes it about the money.
It's a horrible moment when he dies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that in the theater. Like, there's no way that just happened.
Yeah.
And it did. I mean, it happened. The interesting thing is, at the end of Empire Strikes Back, he was not signed on for the next movie. He thought, Harrison Ford thought the Han Solo character should be done. That's why they froze him in carbonite. He thought, my arc is done. This should be about Luke and Leia going forward. And then eventually they convinced him to come back. Mm-hmm. And then he plays a huge part in the sequel trilogy also. I love Han Solo as a kid. I sort of identified with sort of the ruffian scoundrel nature. Not that I was a scoundrel necessarily, but I don't know, he was just the cool gunslinger.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was also a fan of Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Indiana Jones movies, so...
Well, and part of loving Han Solo is loving Chewbacca, so...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and my wife would tell you that's her favorite character.
That's my wife's favorite character.
Hands down, Chewie. is her favorite, bar none. She's chewy, like almost every Halloween at school. She wears her shirt and her hat. She doesn't have the full get up, but yeah, that's her favorite. What about a favorite scene or favorite set of scenes from a movie or TV shows, whatever?
Wow. As bad as the movie is, I kind of like the scene when Yoda finally takes on Palpatine, and he like drops the
Yep.
drops the cloak.
Yep.
And you can tell he's going to be a
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Well, I love that when he walks in and just like waves his hands and the two guards just fall.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, okay,
I love that scene. Yeah.
blank blank is going down right now. Here
Exactly.
it is. Yeah. That's a great scene. So, hey, Jay, thanks for being with us today. Good luck with conference coming up. I'm sure most of that is planned and well at hand.
Well at hand, but yeah.
And just appreciate you being on the show. Good luck with all of the things that you're doing. You have a rehearsal coming up. Hopefully you play your instrument with brilliance.
Hopefully.
As always.
Right.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
To you and your family. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for the invitation. I had a great time.
Always.
What's on the grill? We are reverse searing some steaks today. Lots of steaks are seared. This means that you put it on a very, very hot surface and it sort of gets that crust on the outside, that like blackened crust. It theoretically seals in the flavor and the juices. So you put it on something very hot, cook it so it sears on the outside, then typically turn down the heat and let it cook to the internal temperature of your choice. You get that crispy outside. It looks and tastes like steak should taste. About a year or so ago, I heard about this reverse sear method where you sear the steak at the end instead of the beginning. This changed my life. Best steaks I've ever had. So go get some good steaks. I've said a couple times on this show we buy salmon or tuna at Walmart. And yes, a lot of meat can come from Walmart or your local grocery store without a problem. For steak, I am a butcher store kind of guy. Always from the butcher or fresh from a deli that buys from a butcher. So you get your steaks. I prefer ribeye, but you buy the steak of your choice. This should work with anything. Overnight, you're going to rub them with Worcestershire sauce and your favorite beef seasoning. This gets the juices inside. It tenders up that meat, gets some of the flavor moving. In the morning, flip them over and re-season as needed. So you're getting both sides in that Worcestershire sauce and the seasoning. Get your smoker going to around 200, very low temperature. When it's at temp, you can put the steaks on and insert your temperature probe. Now, time and temperature on this totally depends on how you like your steaks. If you're a rare kind of person, then you need to keep in mind your internal temperature. If you're more of a well-done psychopath, then fine. I am a medium well kind of person. That's kind of how we eat in our family. We shoot for an internal temperature around 140. Doesn't matter what you're going for, whatever you like, that's fine. The point is you're smoking the steak at a very low temperature to get the smoke flavor in, to start cooking the outside, cooking the inside, getting everything sort of equally done throughout the steak. That's what low and slow does. Meanwhile, you're going to start your grill and get that bad boy hot. If you're lucky enough to have a smoker that will also sear, then you don't need that grill. You can just use your smoker. When you're about 20 degrees from your ideal internal temperature for your finished steaks, you take them off of the smoker and you put them on the grill and sear them now, about 10 minutes aside or until you reach that internal temperature that you want. I think this makes the steaks way more tender, way juicier. It still gives you that little bit of crust on the outside and really makes the steak pop. If you really want to go pro level on this, earlier in the morning when you flip those steaks over, re-season, and put them back in the fridge, take a stick of butter, soften it in the microwave, not to liquid, but just to really sort of gooey soft. Add plenty of garlic, parsley, and whatever beef seasoning you used on the steak. You mix that up good and put it back in the fridge. I just do it in a bowl, put it back in the fridge, let it harden. When you put the steak on the grill, take some of that butter, that compound butter that you made, and put some pats of it on top of the steak. When you flip it, do some more. When you take it off and let it rest for a few minutes, a little more butter. That butter with the garlic and with the parsley seasoning and with the additional beef seasoning is going to seep in there and make that steak super juicy and super flavorful. For me, I also like mushrooms on my steak, so I sometimes heat those up on the grill, put some Worcestershire on there, and let that all cook in. If you like onions, you can grill up some onions. Also, we don't typically do that because onions are not something we just have in our house on a normal basis. Pull off the steak at temperature, let it rest in some butter, and serve with sides of your choice. I prefer baked potato loaded with bacon bits, sour cream, cheese, butter, salt, pepper. But that's up to you. However you're going to eat it, enjoy the grill.
That's it. No, breathe. Find your happy place.
The Star Wars Holiday Special. I'm going to admit, I've never seen it. Not until this week. I've heard it's awful. I've heard it's the worst thing. It's awful. It's terrible. I decided to check it out for myself and see what I think so I can tell you, and I am here to tell you this is the worst, most awful piece of trash ever in television history. It is a travesty to Star Wars. It is a tragedy to television. It is a tragedy to humanity, to sight, to sound, to everything on this world and in all galaxies everywhere. The music, awful. The cinematography, awful. The story, barely there. It's a variety show. This was very popular in the 70s and the 60s and the 70s. Variety shows were huge, and so they would have like a sort of a storyline going through, but then they would take all these moments in the middle and like do a vignette and a little, like there'd be a song, there'd be a dance number, there'd be some comedy skits. They'd just kind of mix it up, right? It's a variety of things all manufactured together. This is 1978, about a year and a half after A New Hope. Now, keep in mind, we don't have VHS, we don't have streaming services, so you couldn't just go watch A New Hope anytime. And the idea here was to keep Star Wars at the front of people's mind while they were waiting for The Empire Strikes Back, which wasn't ready to come out yet. Problem is, nobody wanted to make this thing. The writing is awful. Harrison Ford is terrible. He's barely there. You can see it in his eyes the whole time. He just hates this project. Mark Hamill is in it post this awful car crash that he had, so he's just absolutely caked with makeup to make sure that you can't see all of the repairs that needed done to his face. I think he's wearing this awful wig. Perhaps because of the car wreck, they had to kind of shave his head, and they put this awful wig on. Carrie Fisher is in it. She barely wants to be there, you can tell. She sings a song at the end that is just absolutely the most dreadful, horrifying thing ever. Peter Mayhew is in it as Chewbacca. You have a lot of the regulars. Darth Vader is in it, sort of. It's the voice of James Earl Jones is in there, yeah, but it's like a cut from A New Hope that they didn't use. He's not actually there. It's just from just a third of this show is Wookiees talking to other Wookiees in Shriwook, in the Wookiee language, with no subtitles and no person that speaks basic in order to help translate. You know how they do that thing where like Chewbacca says a thing that you don't understand, but Harrison Ford reacts to it in such a way that sort of tells you what Chewbacca said? Well, they don't really do that. It's just Wookiees talking to other Wookiees. It's got Mala, Chewbacca's wife. It has Lumpy, Chewbacca's son. Itchy is in there. That's Chewbacca's father, and they kind of live together. And Chewbacca's trying to get home from Life Day. And there are famous people from the era that are variety show people that are doing these comedy sketches. There's a Boba Fett cartoon that looks like it was drawn by Hanna-Barbera animators that had 4 minutes to make this thing, and they were drunk. Most of it feels like everyone was high on this set. Some of the animation scenes, some of the video sequences. I'm telling you right now, don't go watch this thing. It's not on Disney Plus. You can find it on YouTube. It's about an hour and 37 minutes of your life that you can't get back. I have said time and time again, over and over, you've heard me say it. Star Wars is like pizza. Even the worst pizza is still better than most other foods. I'm here to tell you, this Star Wars holiday special is shit. It is awful. It is, if it's pizza, moldy anchovies on cheeseless bread. That's what this is. It's the moldy anchovy on cheeseless bread of pizza for Star Wars. It's awful. I can't say it enough. There aren't enough words to describe it. Usually I feel better right now, but this thing is going to haunt my dreams for a long, long time. I do not feel better. Moving on. Over the next week, watch your favorite Christmas movie. That's your homework. Text into the show. Tell us what you're watching. What's your favorite Christmas movie? What's your favorite music? What's your favorite Christmas sweet treats? How much do you hate the Star Wars Holiday Special? We've got an episode next week coming up, top 10, bottom 2 of the holiday season, and we would love to include your thoughts. Okay, that's the show. Make sure you leave a rating, drop a comment, or send a message on the app of your choice. You can text the show with the link at the bottom of the description. You can also check out the merch store at themarchingarts.com/RHS. We hope you'll join us next time for the top 10, bottom 2 Christmas list featuring music, movies, concert band, and the worst Christmas song ever, and it's not even close. Thanks for joining me today. The theme music is Lollipop, written by me, copyright RHS Music. The show logo is designed by John Suh. This show is produced by my sister, Kathy. I hope you'll join us next time for more reflections and rantings on symbols and cynicism.